The city exhaled a damp, grimy breath into the alleyway. Rain-slicked asphalt reflected the fractured neon glare of a nearby bar sign, turning puddles of indeterminate liquid into pools of crimson and sapphire. It was in this sliver of urban decay that Fu Jingshen stumbled, his bespoke Italian suit clinging to his frame. Dark with rain and sweat, the world tilted on a sickening axis, the potent drug coursing through his veins, turning his limbs to lead and his thoughts to fog. Shadows detached themselves from the brick walls. 3 men in black suits, their faces grim and purposeful, closed in, their ears. "Don't let him get away," one of them barked, his voice echoing off the grimy brick. The boss said the drug would work fast. "He can't run far." Fu Jingshen pressed a hand against the wall, his knuckles scraping against the rough surface. His mind, usually a fortress of strategic brilliance, was a crumbling ruin. He could feel his control slipping, a terrifying sensation for a man who commanded empires with a single word. He was prey. Just as the net was about to tighten, a clatter of metal sliced through the tense air. A heavy-duty rubbish bin lid went spinning across the alley, crashing against the opposite wall with a deafening clang that startled the men. "Who's there?" one of the henchmen snapped, turning toward the source of the noise. From the deeper shadows at the alley's entrance, a slight figure emerged. It was Zi Shinro, her plain waitress uniform half hidden under a thin, warm cardigan. She clutched the handle of a cast-iron skillet, her knuckles white. She had been taking her usual shortcut home from the restaurant, her mind on her meager paycheck, when she'd stumbled upon the predatory scene. Fear screamed at her to run, but the raw vulnerability in the cornered man's eyes had rooted her to the spot. Taking advantage of the momentary distraction, Fu Jingshen surged forward, a primal burst of adrenaline cutting through the haze. He grabbed Shinro's arm, his touch surprisingly hot. "Help me," he rasped, his voice a low, urgent tremor that vibrated through her. Without a second thought, she pulled him along, her knowledge of the city's labyrinthine backstreets their only weapon. They plunged into a narrower passage, the shouts of their pursuers fading behind them as they navigated a maze of overflowing dumpsters and fire escapes. They finally burst out onto a bustling, brightly lit street, disappearing into the anonymous flow of the late-night crowd. He leaned heavily against her in the relative safety of a bus shelter, his breathing ragged. The drug was taking its final toll, his consciousness flickering like a dying candle. He fumbled inside his jacket, his hand emerging with something that seemed to capture the ambient light. It was a jade pendant, exquisitely carved with a coiled dragon, its surface cool and impossibly smooth. It felt ancient and heavy with significance. He pressed it into her palm, his fingers briefly closing over hers. His eyes, dark and impossibly intense even in his weakened state, bored into hers. "This is the heirloom jade pendant of my Fu family," he managed, each word a monumental effort. "Take it and come find me." Before she could process his words, before she could even ask his name, he staggered away, hailing a taxi with the last of his strength. The car door slammed shut, and he was gone, swallowed by the river of city lights. Shinra stood frozen, the nose of the street fading to a dull hum. She opened her hand. The jade lay against her skin, a cool, solid promise from a man who felt more like a fever dream than a memory. Confusion warred with a strange, burgeoning sense of determination. Who was he, and how could she ever find a ghost in a city of millions? A month later, the chaotic energy of the city felt the world away. The only sounds in the small, sterile room of the rural clinic were the tired whir of a ceiling fan and the rustle of paper as the old doctor adjusted his spectacles. Zi Shinra sat on the edge of the examination bed, her hands twisted in her lap. She had been feeling unwell for weeks, a persistent fatigue and nausea she'd attributed to overwork and stress. The doctor cleared his throat, his expression a mixture of professional calm and personal astonishment. Miss C, he began, his voice gentle but firm. The results are clear. You are 1 month pregnant. The world tilted. Shinra's breath caught in her chest. A painful, sharp gasp. Pregnant, from that one chaotic, terrifying night. The face of the mysterious stranger flashed in her mind. The doctor wasn't finished. He leaned forward, peering at her over his glasses. And it's quite unusual. It's triplets. The last word landed like a physical blow. Triplets. The clinical white walls seemed to close in on her, the air growing thick and suffocating, her face drained of all color. It was impossible. A secret she could never explain, a burden she could never bear alone. Her already difficult life, defined by poverty and the whims of her adoptive family, had just become an inescapable catastrophe. She stumbled home in a daze, the doctor's words echoing in her head. As she reached the cramped, dilapidated house she called home, she heard her adoptive mother's shrill voice from inside. She tried to slip into her small room unnoticed, but the door was flung open. Her adoptive mother, Wong Li, grabbed her arm, her fingers digging into Shinro's flesh like talons. There you are. Stop skulking around and get yourself cleaned up. The matchmaker is here. Shinra stared at her, her mind still reeling. Mom, what do you mean? What matchmaker? Don't play dumb with me, Wong Li snapped, pulling her roughly into the main room. I found you a husband. It's all arranged. Shinra's heart plummeted. A husband? I haven't even met anyone. A horrifying thought took root, one born from village gossip she had always dismissed. Mom, what do you mean? Are you telling me to marry a man in his 50s? From her seat on their best chair, her stepsister Jia Hong Hong let out a derisive snort. She examined her freshly painted nails with an air of superiority. Don't be so dramatic, Shinro. He's Mr. Chen, the big farmer in our village. He's widowed and looking for a young wife to give him a son. She looked up, a cruel, mocking smile playing on her lips. He's offered a generous bride price. It's your good fortune that he's willing to take you. Don't be so ungrateful. The words struck Shinro with the force of a physical assault. Sold. She was being sold like livestock to a man 3 times her age. The room seemed to shrink, the disapproving face of her mother and the smug smirk of her stepsister blurring into a nightmarish tableau of betrayal. Her hand instinctively moved to the pocket where the cool, smooth jade pendant was hidden. It was her only link to a world beyond this suffocating village, a desperate promise from a man she'd never see again. Trapped, pregnant with a secret that would condemn her, and now facing a future that was a prison sentence, Shinro felt the last vestiges of hope crumble into dust. The red paper cutouts pasted crudely on the courtyard walls did not celebrate a union. They sealed a transaction. They bled in the humid air, weeping crimson tears onto the packed dirt. See, Shinro's world had narrowed to the suffocating confines of this cheap, festive mockery of a wedding and the man whose shadow loomed over her. Li Du, the village pig farmer, reeked of slop and cheap liquor. His thick, greasy fingers clamped around her arm like a vice, the pressure sending a jolt of pure revulsion through her. A gold tooth gleamed in his mouth as he grinned, his eyes crawling over her body with a proprietary hunger. Wife, he grunted, the word a physical blow. He squeezed her arm tighter, his other hand moving to paw at her waist. Good. A nice full figure. You'll bear strong sons. The casual mention of sons made the secret life within her wound twist in terror. She had to protect them. She had to protect herself. Tears welled, blurring the leering face before her. Uncle Lee, please, she begged, her voice a fragile thread of sound. Please let me go. I can't marry you. I'll recognize you as my godfather. I'll be your servant. I'll wash your clothes, cook for you, anything you ask. Just don't do this. His grip only tightened. his grin turning into a sneer. He didn't need to answer. Her adoptive father, Jiaode, stepped forward, his face a mask of cold impatience. He avoided her gaze, his eyes fixed on some point over her shoulder as if she were a piece of furniture he was discussing. "It's too late for pleading, you ungrateful girl," he said, his voice flat and devoid of any paternal warmth. "You have to marry him whether you agree or not. We've already accepted his 500,000 when betrothal gift. 500,000. That was her price." The number echoed in the hollow space where her heart used to be. She was a commodity, sold to the highest bidder to fund her stepsister's future. Her adoptive mother stood by the door, wringing her hands but refusing to meet Shinro's desperate, pleading gaze. Complicit, they were all complicit. "No," she whispered, the word barely audible. Then, louder, fueled by a surge of primal fear. "No." The struggle was brief and brutal. Li Du jerked her forward, his strength overwhelming. Her father grabbed her other arm, his grip just as unforgiving. They were dragging her, a lamb to the slaughter, toward the beat-up sedan decorated with wilting flowers that served as the wedding car. She thrashed, kicked, clawed at their hands, her movements frantic and useless. The thin fabric of her cheap red dress tore at the shoulder. Her cries ripped through the heavy afternoon air, echoing off the stone walls of the courtyard. "Mum! Dad! Please, don't sell me. Don't do this to me." Her screams were raw, torn from the depths of her soul. Her eyes scanned the faces of the few neighbors who had gathered to watch the spectacle, their expressions a mixture of pity, curiosity, and cold indifference. No one moved to help. No one dared. In this village, a parent's word was law. "Heaven above," she shrieked, her voice cracking with despair. "Who will save me?" In that moment, as Li Du tried to shove her into the car, a surge of adrenaline, sharp and metallic, coursed through her. It was the instinct of a mother protecting her young. With a strength she didn't know she possessed, she twisted violently, breaking her father's grip. She brought her heel down hard on Li Du's instep, and his grunt of pain gave her the opening she needed. She bolted. She didn't run home. Home was a cage. She ran toward the only symbol of authority she knew, the one place where justice was supposed to reside, the clan chief's office. She burst through the door, a whirlwind of desperation. The small office was crowded with villagers milling about, their chatter ceasing as all eyes turned to her. Her hair was a wild tangle, her dress was torn, and tear tracks stained her dusty cheeks. She stumbled toward the worn wooden desk where the grey-haired clan chief sat, his face a stern, unreadable mask. "Chief," she gasped, her lungs burning. She fell to her knees before him, her body trembling uncontrollably. "You have to help me. My parents, they sold me to Li Du for 500,000 when he just tried to force me into his car. He tried to assault me." Her adoptive parents, having chased her, stormed in right behind her. "She's lying," her father shouted, his face purple with rage and embarrassment. "The girl is ungrateful and wild. We didn't sell her. We found her a good family, a stable man who can provide for her. She should be thanking us." The clan chief looked down at Shinro, his expression cold. "Accusations are easy to make, girl," he said, his voice a low rumble that commanded silence in the room. "Selling a daughter is a serious crime. Do you have any tangible proof?" Proof? Her word? Her tears? Her torn dress, wasn't that enough? Her heart sank. It was her word against her father's, and she was just an adopted girl with no status. Despair began to choke her when a young man near the back of the crowd cleared his throat. "I might have something, Chief." All heads turned. It was Little Wong, a sympathetic villager who often helped her with heavy lifting. He held up his phone, his hand shaking slightly. "I was in the courtyard. I thought it was strange, so I started recording. He pressed play. Lee Du's boorish, arrogant voice filled the tense silence of the office, captured in grainy video. 500,000 is a bargain for a wife this young. The recorded voice bragged to another man. Once I get her home, she learn who's in charge. A few months, she be pregnant with my son. And all this fight will be gone. A wave of shocked murmurs rippled through the office. This was it. The proof. Incontrovertible. Shinro looked up at the clan chief, a fragile flicker of hope igniting within her. Justice would prevail. It had to. The clan chief watched the entire video, his face impassive. When it finished, he slowly took the phone from little Wang's hand and switched it off. The silence in the room was absolute. Thick with anticipation, he placed the phone on his desk, folded his hands, and looked directly at Shinro, his eyes as cold and hard as river stones. Then, he delivered his verdict, his voice astonishingly clear and final. After careful consideration of this performance, he said, gesturing dismissively toward Shinro, "It is clear what has happened. The Jiao family and Li Du are innocent." A collective gasp swept through the crowd. He wasn't finished. His gaze swept over the stern villagers, daring any of them to object. "It is the Shinro who is guilty of slandering her elders, of disrespecting a marital arrangement, and of causing a public disturbance to shame her family. She is a poison in this village." The words hit Shinro with the force of a physical blow, knocking the air from her lungs and extinguishing the last ember of hope. The world tilted on its axis. The faces of the villagers blurred into a gallery of judgment and betrayal. It wasn't just her family. It was the chief. It was the whole system. The entire village, aligned against her. She was utterly, terrifyingly alone. The ringing in her ears was the only sound she could hear as she fell into a void where there was no ground, no light, and no one left to save her. The air in the clan chief's office, already thick with greed and expectation, crackled with a sudden, jarring shift. The chief, a portly man with a perpetually flushed face, held his phone to his ear, his obsequious smile slowly dissolving like sugar in hot acid. "What? Are you certain?" he stammered, his voice climbing an octave, marrying Jiao Hong Hong. He hung up, his eyes darting from a bewildered Shinro to her smugly triumphant stepsister. The switch was instantaneous and brutal. Shinro's adoptive mother, Ma, who had been pinching Shinro's arm just moments before, now spun towards her own daughter, her face a mask of fawning adoration. "Hong Hong, my precious girl." Ma cooed, fussing over a non-existent crease in Hong Hong's dress. "I always knew it. Mr. Fu has excellent taste." Shinro's adoptive father puffed out his chest. "Of course, our Hong Hong is a delicate jewel. In the future, she's definitely going to marry a wealthy tycoon in the big city, unlike some people who bring nothing but shame." He shot a venomous glare at Shinro, the dregs of his earlier hope for a bride price now curdling into pure spite. Hong Hong preened under the attention, casting a look of pure, malicious glee at her stepsister. "Shinro, you should have known your place. A man like Mr. Fu would never be interested in a dirty village girl like you." The venom was suffocating. Every eye in the crowded room, which had spilled out into the dusty courtyard, was now on Shinro, filled with contempt and mockery. Humiliation burned her cheeks, but it was Mo's next action that turned the fire to ice. Her mother grabbed her wrist, her grip like iron, and her rough hand pressed against Shinro's abdomen. Mo's eyes widened, first in shock, then in a horrifying, predatory realization. You unfilial disgrace," Ma shrieked, her voice echoing through the courtyard and drawing the rest of the villagers closer. "You're pregnant." The accusation hung in the air. A death sentence. Shinro flinched, her hands instinctively flying to shield her belly. Terror, stark and absolute, seized her. These were her children. A secret, precious part of her and the man from that night. She's ruined, utterly ruined, Ma spat, her face contorted with theatrical fury. She turned to the clan chief, her voice dripping with manufactured righteousness. Chief, according to village law, we must maintain our purity. Throw this unfilial girl into a pig cage and drown her in the river. A collective gasp went through the crowd, followed by a low murmur of cruel agreement. They saw not a terrified young woman, but a stain on their village's honor. Li Du, the lecherous man she was supposed to marry, pushed through the crowd, his gaze landing on Shinra's belly with a sickening glint. Drowning her is a waste, he sneered, his eyes crawling over her body. Why not use a stick to beat the child in her belly out? Then she can still bear children for me. The monstrosity of the suggestion sucked the air from Shinra's lungs. A stick. They were talking about beating her, about killing her unborn babies. She looked from Li Du's leering face to her mother's cold fury, to her father's indifferent cruelty, and saw no humanity, no mercy. The villagers nodded, their faces grimly set. This was justice to them. This was tradition. Her heart shattered into a million pieces. She was alone, utterly and completely alone. Two burly villagers stepped forward, their hands reaching for her. She stumbled back, a choke sob escaping her lips as she clutched her stomach. A silent promise to the life within that she would not let them win. This was it. Her life, and the lives of her children, would end here, in the dirt, surrounded by faces twisted with hate. Just as their fingers were about to close around her arms, a voice, cold and sharp as shattering ice, cut through the chaotic din. Stop! The single word carried an impossible weight of authority, freezing everyone in place. The villagers turned as one, their jaws slack. Through the parting crowd strode a man who seemed to belong to a different world entirely. His bespoke suit was immaculate, a stark slash of dark, expensive fabric against the village's dusty ochre tones. His face was a mask of cold fury, his handsome features sharpened by a rage that seemed to radiate from him in palpable waves. Flanking him were two imposing men in black, their presence an unspoken threat. Shinra's breath hitched. Time seemed to warp and bend, pulling her back to a feverish night, to a pair of intense, dark eyes. It couldn't be, it's you, she gasped, the words barely a whisper. Into long strides, Fu Jingshen was in front of her, shrugging off his jacket and wrapping it around her trembling shoulders. He pulled her into his arms, his embrace a fortress against the hostile world. The scent of him sandalwood and something clean and masculine was achingly familiar. He held her tight, his chin resting on the top of her head. I'm sorry, he murmured. His voice, now stripped of its icy command, was raw with regret. I came too late. From now on, I will seek justice for you and our children. The clan chief, recovering from the shock, scoffed. And who are you? A poor nobody from the city thinking he can play the hero. Ma chimed in, pointing a trembling finger. He's the father. He's the one who sullied this wretch. Seize him too. Fu Jingshen didn't even deign to look at them. He gently eased his hold on Shimuro, keeping a protective hand on her back, and pulled out his phone. He made a call, his words clipped and precise. It's me, the situation in King Village. Handle it. Immediately, he hung up. A beat of tense silence passed. Then, the clan chief's phone began to ring. A shrill, panic sound in the sudden quiet. He answered, his bravado already faltering. As he listened, a color drained from his face, leaving behind a pasty, terrified gray. He began to tremble, the phone slipping from his slack fingers and clattering to the ground. Removed from office effective immediately investigation, he mumbled, looking at Fu Jingshen as if he was seeing a ghost. Fu Jingshen's cold gaze swept over the entire crowd, silencing every last whisper. He pulled Shinro closer to his side, his voice ringing out, clear and absolute, a proclamation that would shatter their small, cruel world. "Si Shinro is the woman I, Fu Jing-shen, want to marry," he declared, his voice resonating with immense power. "She is carrying my children, and from this day forward, she will be the most honorable woman in the entire young country." The chaos in the village square froze, suspended in a cloud of dust kicked up by a fleet of sleek, black sedans that had screeched to a halt. Doors opened in unison, and men in sharp suits emerged, forming a stoic perimeter. From the lead car, a flustered, middle-aged man in an impeccably tailored official's uniform practically fell out, his face pale with panic. He scrambled toward Fu Jing-shen, his hurried steps kicking up pebbles. The villagers, who had been jeering at Shinro moments before, fell silent, their mouths agape. They recognized him instantly. The local viceroy, a man of immense authority who rarely, if ever, set foot in their remote village. The viceroy reached Fu Jing-shen and executed a deep, 90-degree bow, his voice trembling with a mixture of terror and reverence. "Mr. Fu, my deepest apologies for my late arrival. I was not informed of your visit." The clan chief's face, already flushed with self-importance, turned the color of ash. "Mr. Fu," the name echoed in his mind, connecting with whispers of the nation's wealthiest, most powerful, and most reclusive magnate, the richest man in the country. He felt the blood drain from his head. The viceroy straightened, his eyes landing on the cowering clan chief. The deference vanished, replaced by a volcanic fury. "You," he roared, jabbing a finger at the old man. "You senile, corrupt old fool. Do you have any idea who you've offended? Abusing your power, siding with frauds, and humiliating the esteemed guest of Mr. Fu Jing-shen. Your clan is finished." Jiao Hong and her parents stared, their minds refusing to process the scene. Li Du, who had been preening over his supposed connection to power, looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. Fu Jing-shen's voice cut through the viceroy's tirade, cold and absolute. He took a deliberate step to stand slightly in front of Shinro, a silent shield. His gaze swept over the stunned faces of the Jiao family, the disgraced chief, and the gawking villagers. "See Shinro," he declared, his voice resonating with an authority that commanded total silence, "is the future madam of the Fu family." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. "It is all of you who are blind to greatness," he continued, his eyes locking onto Jiao Hong, who flinched as if physically struck, mistaking a crow for a phoenix. "You fawned over an impostor while casting out the true gem. The dam of dinar finally broke." The Jiao family crumpled to the ground as one. "Mr. Fu, we were wrong. We were fools, Mrs. Jiao wailed, clawing at the dirt. "Please, have mercy, we didn't know." The clan chief, his legs giving out, fell to his knees, cat-eyeing frantically. "A misunderstanding, a terrible misunderstanding. Forgive my old, clouded eyes." Fu Jing-shen watched them grovel, his expression unmoved. He gave a curt nod to the viceroy. "Justice must be served, not begged for," he said, his tone final. "Arrest the clan chief for corruption and embezzlement of village funds. As for the Jiao family and all who actively participated in this public humiliation," his gaze hardened, "confiscate their assets and sentence them to 10 years of hard labor in the Western mines. Let them learn the true meaning of hardship." Armed officers moved in immediately. The satisfying click of handcuffs echoed in the square as the chief was hauled to his feet. The living room of the Fu family mansion was a world away from the dusty village courtyard Shinro had always known. Sunlight filtered through floor-to-ceiling windows, gleamed off polished mahogany, and caught in the facets of a crystal chandelier that hung like a frozen waterfall from the cathedral's ceiling. The air was still, scented with the faint, clean fragrance of lilac. Despite the plush softness of the velvet sofa beneath her, Shinro sat ramrod straight, her hands clasped nervously in her lap. Fu Jingshen's hand rested protectively on her shoulder. A warm, steadying weight. The sound of approaching footsteps on the marble floor made her flinch. Each click of a heel was a sharp, percussive beat against her racing heart. A woman entered, her posture as immaculate as a tailored Chanel suit. Her hair was styled in an elegant chignon, and diamonds glittered at her ears and throat. This was Madame Fu, the matriarch of the family, and her expression was a mask of aristocratic froideur. Her sharp, intelligent eyes swept over the room before landing, with unnerving precision, on Shinro's rounded belly. The silence was a heavy, suffocating blanket. Shinro felt a familiar, cold dread creeping up her spine, the ingrained fear of a powerful elder's judgment. This was the moment it all came crashing down. She had brought shame to this pristine household, a stain on their immaculate reputation. Before Jingshen could speak, Shinro slipped off the sofa and bowed her head low, her voice a trembling whisper. "Auntie, I'm sorry. It's all my fault." It was a reflexive apology, the same one she'd offered countless times to her adoptive mother for offenses both real and imagined. Madame Fu's perfectly sculpted eyebrows drew together. She took another step forward, and Shinra braced for the inevitable tirade, for the dismissal she felt she deserved. Instead, two gentle hands cupped her face, lifting her chin. Shinra blinked, her tear-filled eyes meeting a gaze that had suddenly melted from ice into a wellspring of profound sorrow and compassion. "Oh, my dear girl," Madame Fu's voice was thick with an emotion Shinro couldn't place. "You've been wronged." And then, to Shinro's utter shock, a formidable woman pulled her into a warm, secure embrace. The scent of expensive perfume and something indescribably motherly enveloped her. She stood frozen in the circle of Madame Fu's arms, unable to process the wave of kindness that was so alien, so overwhelmingly contrary to her life's experience. Madame Fu held her at arm's length, her thumbs stroking Shinro's cheeks. "Jingshen told me everything you've endured. To think that a child could be treated with such cruelty, it's unconscionable." She then turned a stern look on her son. "And you, taking so long to find her. You let my grandchild suffer." "Mother, Jingshen started, but Madame Fu waved him off, her attention already back on Shinro. She reached into her Hermes handbag and produced a sleek, black card, pressing it firmly into Shinro's hand. "Here, for you and my grandchildren. A little something to make up for your hardship." Shinro looked down. It was a premium bank card, its weight feeling impossibly heavy. "Auntie, I can't accept this." "Nonsense," Madame Fu said briskly. "It's just $1 billion to start with. You'll need it for the babies. Clothes, toys. The best education children are expensive. $1 billion. The number was so astronomical, so detached from reality. As Shinro felt a dizzying vertigo, she tried to push the card back. "No, really, it's too much. I couldn't possibly." Madame Fu's hand closed over hers, her expression softening into a tender smile. "Silly girl," she chided gently. "First, you need to correct your address. You should call me Mom." The word struck Shinro with the force of a physical blow, shattering the last of her composure. A sob escaped her, raw and broken. For 20 years, that word had been a source of pain, a title for the woman who had starved her of affection and burdened her with cruelty. Now, it was being offered as a gift, a promise of belonging. "Mom," she whispered, testing the feel of it on her tongue. It felt right. It felt like coming home. Madame Fu beamed, patting her hand. "That's my girl." Her focus immediately shifted, a matriarchal efficiency kicking into high gear. "All right, first order of business. We need to hire the best confinement nurse in the country. No, the world. We have to make sure my daughter-in-law gets nice and plump after giving birth to my 3 grandchildren. You're far too thin, my dear. We need to fix that immediately." Shinra was swept up in a whirlwind of care and concern. As Madame Fu began making calls, her voice crisp and authoritative as she arranged for nutritionists and specialists, Shinra sank back onto the sofa. Jing Shen sat beside her, wrapping a protective arm around her. She leaned into his solid frame, feeling a warmth spread through her that had nothing to do with the sunlit room. It was the warmth of acceptance of being cherished. It was a feeling she had never known, a deep, cellular comfort that soothed the old, aching wounds of her past. Later, as the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the manicured gardens, Shinra stood by the window, gazing out at the meticulously sculpted rose bushes. The DNA test results Jing Shen had arranged for lay on the table. A simple piece of paper that had severed the final, painful tie to her tormentors. She was not their daughter. The knowledge didn't bring grief, only a profound, cleansing relief. The cruelty she had endured was not a twisted form of family obligation. It was simply the evil of strangers. She was free. She turned to Jing Shen, who was watching her with an expression of deep, unwavering love. Her eyes, clear for the first time in years, held a new light, a flicker of hope for a past she'd never known. Jing Shen, she said, her voice soft but steady, can you help me find my biological parents? A gentle smile touched his lips. He moved to stand behind her, his hands coming to rest on her pregnant belly, a gesture of both possession and promise. I was waiting for you to ask, he murmured, his chin resting on her shoulder. I've already sent people to investigate. We have a few leads. Whoever they are, wherever they are, I will find them for you. Shinra's heart swelled with a gratitude so immense it left her breathless. He didn't just solve her problems. He anticipated her deepest needs. He turned her around to face him, his gaze intense. And I promise you this, Shinro, he said, his voice resonating with conviction. We will have the grandest wedding this city has ever seen. It will be public, and it will be perfect. And when we get married, your parents will be there. Your father will walk you down the aisle, and your mother will see how beautiful you are. I will give you back everything that was stolen from you. Tears welled in her eyes again. But this time they were not tears of sorrow or fear. They were tears of joy of a future so bright it almost hurt to look at. She cradled her belly, feeling the faint, fluttering movements of the new life within her. She looked past Jing Shen's shoulder, out at the endless green of the garden and the vast, open sky beyond. For the first time, the horizon didn't seem like a distant, unreachable edge of a world she didn't belong to. It looked like a beginning. Here, in the arms of this man, surrounded by a family that wanted her, she had found more than just a sanctuary. She had found a love that healed, a home that was true, and the promise of her own identity.